Hey everyone, I'm doing, of course, he has to say hello. Say hi. I am doing a video today about treatment, and as you read from the title, what it was like a day in the treatment center I was in, what it was like. So, first off, it was the treatment center I was in a hospital. Was on a locked unit in a hospital. It wasn't like, there's a lot of different treatment centers, different versions of them. Like there's residential where you have your own little house that you share with like 4 or 5 people. But I was an inpatient level of care in a hospital on a unit. The unit was also made of other patients that were dealing with other mental illnesses, not just eating disorders. At any given time, there could be up to 9 patients with an eating disorder on the track. But most of the time, it only got up to about 7. That was like the highest they had, I think, when I was ever in there. And that was way too much for the small. Like, it was too chaotic. But, so what it is you start your day at 6 a.m. One of the overnight PNAs would come in, give you a robe, hospital gown, and say, good morning. Most of the time, it'd be one of my favorite staff who would wake us up and say, "Oh, girls," sweetest thing ever. And you would go to the bathroom, go out into the hall with your gown on, nothing else on. Well, you could have your underwear on, and you would get weight. You could choose to look at your weight, or you could choose not to look at your weight. It was up to you. They used to have a rule when you couldn't look, but now they left it up to you to make your better judgment. And then you had until about 7:30, 8 o'clock. Breakfast would be called any time around there. Normally it would show up about 7:20. They would set it up by 7. They would start setting it up at 7:30. It'd be ready by 7:45, 7:50. So normally for me, this last time I would get ready and then lay back down until 7:30 and then get up, and I would then brush my teeth, recheck myself over, and then just chill in my room if breakfast wasn't called, like devotions and whatnot, until breakfast was called. And then I would go to breakfast, and at mealtime they had certain rules. We would all be at the same table, so the observation person that's assigned, there's a observation person assigned, can't speak today, to watch us and make sure we're not doing behaviors like throwing food away, hiding under our trays. We're not, giving food to other people. We're doing what we need to. And that observation person was supposed to take our tray at the end of the meal and double check that we drank everything, like our juice cartons that you couldn't tell if they were empty or not. Milk cartons, make sure we used all our butter, all our mayo, all our tartar sauce. We ate everything. We didn't leave, big chunks. And then that was mealtime. Sometimes we would play word association games, or listen to some music and try to make normal conversation that wasn't about food. Obviously, sometimes it would turn to food, like, oh my gosh, I love this, food. It reminds me when my grandma made it, but we would keep appropriate conversation. So that was breakfast. And then after breakfast, we would have assigned groups. Each group was normally about an hour long, about 45 minutes to an hour long. They have a weekly schedule that they give you when you get in there. And these groups consist of, there was one therapist we saw. We saw one nurse 3 times a week. 4 times a week. We saw a nurse practitioner twice a week. We did rec therapy about 2 to 3 times, about 2 times a day. And then we had music therapy once a week. And then we had, rec therapy, sorry, my dog's getting in trouble. Rec therapy would consist of baking activity, which would be, we would bake something and eating disorder patients had to eat it. Going to the library, where every other week you would have to get something that had caloric intake and finish it on that activity. doing stretching, relaxation, and yoga in the gym, doing weightlifting, doing crafts, bingo. And then, so those are the things that we normally fill our day with. There was a lot of free time though, because sometimes, like during Christmas when I was there, the nurse practitioner took a month off. The therapist took 2 weeks off. So we had a lot of free time. There was quite a few groups that like couldn't make it and filling in, and it was pretty hectic. Lunch was always about 11:30 noon, and then our snack would be at 2:30. Sorry, would be at 2:30. And then dinner would be about 5:30, 5:45. And then our second snack of the day would be about 7:40, because the person who was supposed to get on snack time like got relieved from their duty at 7:30, and then would go set it up and call about 7:40. Meals would be called over the speaker for the whole unit. So you would hear this beeping because they would press the button for the intercom in the kitchen, and then you hear this beeping by the front office that would let you know that someone's calling, and then they would, say, hey, please call the meal or call snack, and then they would pick up the phone and make an answer for the whole unit. And meals consist of the same rotation, 2-week rotation. Like every other Monday would be chicken Alfredo for dinner. Every other Sunday would be breakfast pizza, those kind of things. Like we had chicken Alfredo, spaghetti with meatballs. We had chicken parm. They had the same 3 vegetables, corn, mixed veggies, and green beans. The same juices, apple, orange, or cranberry. You would get either skim or 1% milk, or lactose-free / soy if you needed those choices. It was pretty much like we got mini taco salads, soft shell tacos, French toast, sausage, a big variety of things. During music therapy, the music therapy would come and we would be in the dining hall, and she would bring like instruments for us to play with and do music with, and she would take a song and take lyrics out, and then we would fill it in with our own lyrics. And then we also had nurses group once a day, and nurses group would be the charge nurse, mostly the charge nurse would sit with all the ED patients and would do some kind of cognitive behavioral therapy. Whether that's like, a lot of it was a worksheet talking about, reframing, like maybe talking about negative thoughts and how to reframe them. We also did DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, and that's not something that was specific to eating disorders. That was for everybody, but they let eating disorder patients join that group just to, on the days that we could, just for fun. We also had occupational therapy, where the occupational therapist would bring an activity down for all of us to do. Sometimes I would talk about body image, about self-esteem. And when it comes to the 2 therapy groups, the nurse practitioner, we would sit around the table, and each of us would go around taking our turn, kind of updating her and telling her what's going on, and she would kind of talk us through things and kind of give her input. And then during the therapist that we saw about 4 times a week, we would sit around the table, and he would sit there, look at us, and whoever wanted to spoke up. If you had something going on, he'd say, hey, yo, I'm pissed today. I didn't want that eat that sausage for breakfast, and now I'm feeling fat. Like, you could say anything. You could say, I'm really not feeling good. I woke up this morning and had to put these jeans on, and they're feeling more tight than normal, and I'm not liking it. I'm really feeling like purging, these things. And then he would help you through it. And then also you could have input from the other group. The other members could speak up and put their input into it, like say, hey, this was what helps me. Obviously not doing it in a degrading, smashing way, and being respectful of each other. And, then we would also have aquatic therapy, which was rec therapy every Wednesday afternoon. One of my favorite groups, like my favorite group. I loved it. We'll go down to this, like, it wasn't a pool, but it was like kind of like a glorified hot tub. It was a huge hot tub that we would do like kind of like that old lady like water aerobic stuff. It was pretty fun though because like it was heated pool, 90 degrees, really nice. And then Monday mornings for breakfast, you got to go up to the OT kitchen, which was one floor above where the unit was, and you got a meal plan, a little card that said how many grains, how many fruits, how many fats, how many meats you needed for your breakfast, and then you got to pick what you wanted to fill in those things. If you wanted oatmeal to count as one of your grains, you could do that. If you wanted to have an orange as your fruit, you could do that. You could pick what you wanted. They had waffles, bagels, different kinds of fruits. They had muffins. You could do cereal. You could do Nutella. You could do peanut butter. It was your choice. And then that Monday at breakfast, we would decide what we would make Wednesday for lunch together. And it would normally have to be main course, a fruit, a veggie, and dessert. And then that was pretty much it. So like you would make that up, and then Tuesday, the occupational therapist would take someone from the partial eating disorder program to go shopping, and they would pick up all the stuff we needed for our lunch on Wednesday. And then Wednesday, we would go up before aquatics, make it all together, like the group of people who were able to go up for OT lunch. And then we would make it, we would eat it, and then we would come down for aquatics. OT lunch and breakfast, we're done with the child eating disorder patients. They would come up and have breakfast and lunch with us for OT during that time. So it's nice because you get to get a different vibe being off the unit and being with different people, but it's also really scary because one, I don't like eating around other eating disorder patients, especially ones that you're not super familiar with. So it's a little nerve-wracking. There was one OT lunch where I was literally the only one, and it was the least stressful OT meal I've ever had. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I didn't have any other eating disorder patients there, wasn't on the unit. The two OT people that were with me, the staff, were amazing, made things so easy. Oh, loved it. So that's kind of like, and during free time, when you had free time, I would watch Netflix. You could rent a DVD, laptop, or tablet from the library, video game system. Like, they had an Xbox or Wii you could play, or PlayStation. So I watched a lot of Netflix and rented a lot of DVDs. I read, I did devotions. I practiced my German because I'm doing my German lesson on Duolingo every day. I would color, did a lot of adult coloring books. And like, I think I may have mentioned, I did a lot of journaling, as I showed you in another video, a previous video that should be able to link below. I talk about finding my journals, my old treatment journals, and yeah, that's what I would do during my free time. You had to be on observation when you first got there, on standard observation from breakfast time until 9 at night with the staff. And they had to go to the bathroom with you and check it before you flushed so you didn't purge or hide anything. And then you were able to get to meals +1 when you worked up enough, where you were observed during meals and an hour after meals and during group time, and that's it. So like if it was an hour after meal and we didn't have group, you could go to your room. But then there's also meals only, where you're only observed during meals, and obviously when you're in group, you're observed. And then also there's activity levels, restricted, where you only can do things on the unit, level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1, you could do like aquatic, stretching, relaxation, going, to baking. Level 2 was you could do like level 2 walks, which were farther off the hospital. And then level 3 was going off the hospital grounds, which I did a couple times. They don't really do that much anymore because not a lot of people get to level 3 before they get discharged, but I went to like Barnes & Noble and Target. So that's kind of a rough summary of what it was like. I really hope you enjoyed this. Please give me feedback in the comments. Any suggestions for any further videos. Please subscribe and like, and I love you all.